Hi, everyone. It's Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach. And now, since around, I believe, June 17th, I am a certified hypnotherapist. I like to say that I'm a baby hypnotherapist because I'm brand spanking new at it. So, last year on Labor Day, I started my course for certification as a hypnotherapist and completed it. And it has been an amazing journey. And I'm delighted to share that news with you that I now am able to offer an extra service to the people who could use a little help sorting out whatever issues they have that they would prefer to resolve. So, I've been away for a while. I'm welcoming myself back to making videos because I've been on break for over a month, well over a month. Many of you have already heard that I had an accident, and it was last October, October 2024. I tripped and fell on the dog bed that I have for my two dogs. And I thought I badly sprained my left shoulder. Turns out it wasn't sprained at all. I had a full thickness tear of my rotator cuff. And uh, for the squeamish, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to talk about it in great detail, but I tore my bicep off the bone and it needed to be repaired. But I had just started school. And when I went to see a surgeon about it, they said, well, we don't really love the idea of you waiting until the end of your program to get this repaired. But it is possible to hold off, but we don't want you to go past 1 year from the date that it happened because it makes it very, very much more difficult for us to repair this for you. And you might end up having to have shoulder replacement. So my first question, I had my surgery July 7th of 2025. And my first question when I woke up in recovery was, were you able to save it or did you have to replace it? And the recovery nurse said, no, they repaired it. They were able to do a repair. And I was like, awesome. That's fantastic. But what I'm going to be speaking about today is two things. One is related to having surgery, and the other one, because that's a very, very common issue for people with severe trauma, is anytime you have to be hospitalized or have to have surgery or certain procedures. And the other one is a really cool new project that I have going on, and I'm going to invite you to participate in it. So I have a little grounding stone from Lake Erie in my hand, and I hope that you have a grounding tool nearby because if you're going to watch this video, it's really important that you take care of your system's needs and you make sure that you are feeling completely safe inside. Anytime you spend time working with a trauma recovery coach or hearing someone else's trauma story, it is the kindest thing you can do for yourself to take excellent care of your system's needs so that you do not become triggered. Or if you do become triggered, then you would at least be able to uh, be your own best advocate and self partner so that you could mitigate any symptoms that you would be starting to have. And this way you can get back to feeling great again really quickly. So there's a lot of value in using a grounding tool. And many of you know my favorite are stones. I'm a stone person. I just absolutely love them. And they just feel really good in my hand and they have some weight to them and it just helps a lot. So with that, I will get started. Okay. First thing I'm going to speak about today. Let's do the fun one first. This will feel good. Oh, a little dog just came to the door, and I'm going to show her to you for just a moment because there she is. There she is. She's licking her lips. That means, Mom, you know what? I could really do with a snack right now. That's how she tells me. And if I don't get the hint the first couple times, then the barking begins. And I don't mean little bit of barking. I mean capital B barking. All right. So we're going to start with the first one because it's more fun. Okay. Um, I decided months ago that I'm going to write another book. I have actually written one book, and it has not gone to publishing yet, but that's okay. All in due time. The second one is not so much my own story, but it's my story plus a whole bunch of other people's stories. And the way that's going to work is, I've talked about this with a friend who's going to help me get this published, is that we're the book is about absolutely awful apologies. Now, you hear me and many other content creators on YouTube speak about the personality disorder called narcissistic personality disorder. And I speak about several personality disorders, but one of them that is one of the features of, I'm tripping on my words. I'm going to start that thought over again. A very common thread throughout several different personality disorders is an inability to apologize, or a real strong propensity to apologize in a really toxic, useless way, if they do it at all. And apologies that involve lies, gaslighting, blaming the victim, total denial, using the Darvo method of just completely messing with another person. And I'll do a video about Darvo, but it's DARVO in case you want to look it up if you're not familiar with it. Just do a Google search for Darvo and it'll come up and it'll tell you exactly what it stands for and who does it. And a lot of it will sound very familiar to you if you've had, if you've been bumping up against narcissistic people in your life. They don't have to be diagnosed with any personality disorder. Only 1% of people with personality disorders ever get diagnosed. And then less than 1% of them ever get psychiatric treatment for it. So we know, I mean, their statistics are different all over the place depending on whose material you read and what you watch. But it's my understanding that somewhere around 12 to 20% of people, as high as that, have really high narcissistic traits. And I would say probably on the lower end of that, around the 12% might be diagnosable, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but that's a significant amount of our population. And then when you think of just the first 100 people that you could put on a list of people that you know, well, then you can look at that list. If you ever took the time to make a list of 100 people that you know, you could ask yourself which ones on that list really stand out to me as the most highly narcissistic in the bunch. And then you'd have to ask yourself, if I've ever had an apology come from one of those people for something that they have done, was it a quality apology? Really interesting thought, isn't it? So what I'm planning to do is collect people's stories and pick the very best ones. And we might do a series of books about this. I think there might be so much response that it won't all fit in one volume. But it's really interesting stuff. And some of it's funny, some of it's heartbreaking, But when we read what someone's experience is, there's value in that. We don't want it to happen to somebody else, but it also gives us the feeling that I'm not the only one. I'm not the only person who's just treading water in this stuff and just trying to find some equilibrium in my life when I'm dealing with these people who do these repetitively, deeply injurious, toxic things. And how can I be healthy when I'm exposed to all that? Well, a great way to be healthy when you're exposed to that is to learn what it sounds like, learn what it looks like, learn what it feels like, learn what the language is that they use. And the more we learn the language of that, not that we're going to devote our whole life to giving them our attention when we could just be living our best life. But the value in that is that I can live my best life when I have a filter for it. When I can hear it, my ears are tuned to it. I hear that language, I recognize their buzzwords, I know exactly what they're doing. And then I don't take it personally. I just go on, give myself some distance, live my absolute best life. And for the ones that happened that were really big stench bombs in my life that did me some emotional damage, the ones that made me feel like I now need to recover from this. It didn't just roll off my back, it left me scars. And I feel now that I need some recovery. Well, working with a trauma recovery coach, working with any mental health practitioner is going to help you to work through that. But now you have the experience that's kind of filed away where you know that this is something that my entire system no longer tolerates. So that's why I want to help people become more educated about the value of a decent quality apology and how to recognize when somebody is throwing us an absolute turd ball apology. That's the title of the book, Turd Ball Apologies. But when we have that, we're armed with information, knowledge. Okay. Knowledge is power. And when we have the power of that knowledge, then we're safer. And then we can pass that information on to another person that we know that may not have found that information yet. But my goal is to empower people. I love being empowered. I absolutely love empowerment. And the more we empower ourselves, the more we can empower others. The more we empower others, the more we feel absolutely gratified in life. We feel bolstered up. We feel that we can pretty much encounter anything and be okay. We just really, really want to feel okay. So that's a really cool thing that's coming up. So I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to be making a couple of shorts about this. Share them with your friends if you would, please. I would appreciate it so much. And by the way, right now, please pause to hit the like on this video if you would. If you're not subscribed, I would love to have you be returning to come back and watch some of my videos. And if you want to start at the beginning, I tell my entire trauma story from the moments before I was born all the way up to present day. And the purpose of that, again, is to empower people, to educate them, to help them understand certain concepts in people's behavior, concepts in mental health, concepts in trauma that will help you to have a pocket full of resources that will help you so that you can be feeling not just okay, but really healthy and to feel really, really empowered. And most importantly, self-partnered. Okay. Self-partnering, extremely important. So that means that I'm the source of my wellness. I am my best support of cheerleading. I am my best support of my emotional well-being, my psychological well-being, my physical well-being, my financial well-being, my spiritual well-being. All of these things, they matter. They're extremely important, and you matter, just like I matter. So I'm sorry, Scrappy Doo, two doors down. I don't know her real name, but she's barking her head off right now. She does it all day long, and I absolutely love it. I feel like that's music. I'm a dog person. Got a couple people who live in my neighborhood, not so much, but that's okay. All right, so if you're interested in sharing your story of your worst apology with me to have it possibly put into the book, I welcome all emails. Anybody who wants to send me an email for a contribution to the book or a potential contribution to the book. I created a special email, and it's real easy. You'll be able to remember it. Excuse me. It's worstapologyever@gmail.com. Okay. Worstapologyever@gmail.com. Just send me an email. Take as short or long as you want. Just send me the email, and I only need a couple of things from you in that email. You need to put at the beginning of the email whether or not you want to be identified. Okay, some people will want to, some people will say it's got to be strictly anonymous, and I will honor those requirements from the people who send me their apology story. So again, I'll be making shorts, share them with your friends, forward them to other people if you think they might be interested in doing that. And again, like, subscribe, share, put your comments in the comments section for my video because it helps me in the YouTube algorithm. All right, so now I'm going to move on and tell you a little bit about my surgery experience, because it is something that trauma survivors could really use. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I wish they would meet that little puppy's needs, because she's just so vocal right now. I'm so sorry about it interfering with my video. If I get up and move inside, then I might possibly start my own dogs off barking. So if you don't mind, we'll just work through it this way for a couple minutes. So when I found out in December of 2024 that I needed to have surgery, like I said, I was just at the beginning of school. I didn't want to take a leave of absence. And if I had to take an extension to finish longer than 10 months out from school, I was not going to be able to do that for free. And it is very expensive. The school itself is very expensive to go to. So I didn't want to have to give myself a financial crunch. So I just hung in there and I did the school and just was being really careful with the shoulder. And then scheduled it for, I was supposed to graduate school on July 4th, 2025. I graduated early, a couple weeks early. I believe it was 17th of June. And then got scheduled for surgery on July 7th, because I thought I'm going to need every single day right up until the day of graduation to get this done. Turns out it didn't work out that way. It went a little smoother than I thought. So July 7th was the day, but I have a challenge. And as trauma survivor, some of you may never have heard of this. Some of you will be familiar with it. I've spoken about it before in my videos, but there is something that is called, it used to be called Munchausen by proxy syndrome. And there's a lot of confusion about that, but we'll get into that in a minute. There's some things that people, they're kind of like misinformation that was put out in the 1980s until present about that syndrome. But what it is, it's the only mental illness that is also a crime. It's classified as both. And not everybody that develops that issue is doing it to a child. We most commonly think of it, oh, it's some crazy parent that keeps dragging their child into the emergency room and claiming they're having seizures, or claiming that they're stopping breathing, or claiming that they're, constantly vomiting or something like that, when they're not. You're just absolutely not. But this is really important to know, these couple facts. Munchausen by proxy syndrome got its name changed a long time ago, years ago. And it's not called that anymore. It's called factitious disorder imposed on another. It's still the exact same syndrome, just has a different name in the DSM-5. And so the idea behind this is, it doesn't have to be physical illness that the person is claiming that another person has. Does not have to be the person who's victimized by this does not have to be a child. It can be a person of any age. In fact, typically people who are engaging in this would normally be doing it to a person who is at risk, an at-risk child or an at-risk senior or an at-risk adult. And what I mean by this is a person who might be neurodivergent, a person who might have a very, very significant challenge mentally or physically. It could be an elderly person with dementia. It could be a person who is completely dependent on another adult. But it doesn't have to be their parent, Doesn't have to be their child. It doesn't have to be, they don't even have to be, physically related to them. It can be a caregiver, it could be a caregiver in a group home or something like that. But what it is, it's primarily the person who is making up the symptoms of illness in another person and trying to get them diagnosed, treated, medicated, hospitalized, things like that. Really serious stuff. Okay. When somebody is doing those things, they do not have to be diagnosed with a disorder. It's still the traits. We call them traits or factors of a disorder. If they're exhibiting traits or factors of a disorder, that's the most important part, not whether they're diagnosed. And so someone in my life years ago started to do that to me. And they wanted to use it as a power and control mechanism to get me to be considered to be mentally ill. They wanted me to be treated, diagnosed, medicated, and possibly hospitalized for bipolar disorder. And I do not have bipolar disorder. I have an immeasurable compassion for people who do have bipolar disorder. People with bipolar disorder or just mania or severe depression, these people are suffering and they need care and they need help and they need compassion. They need empathy. And I don't mean any disrespect to anyone when I say I have never had bipolar disorder and I have never had any of the symptoms of bipolar disorder. But as a certified trauma recovery coach, I have awareness. It's one of the first things they teach you in the International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaches course to become certified as a trauma recovery coach. That there's a short list of mental health diagnoses that are commonly misdiagnosed when the true diagnosis for the individual would actually be PTSD or complex PTSD. Because an inexperienced or uninformed, or poorly informed, I should say, practitioner could easily misdiagnose a mental health disorder on that short list instead of the appropriate one, which for that individual may be complex PTSD or PTSD. So I have been diagnosed with both PTSD and complex PTSD. But there was a person in my life who really, 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 really wanted me to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And they wouldn't, just kept on calling people, asking them to call my mental health provider. And they did. People did call my mental health provider and ask if they would diagnose me. And my mental health provider, when I went in for an appointment, said, I'm glad you're sitting down. Do you want to listen to the phone calls that I'm getting? And it's your family. And they want me to diagnose you and treat you and make sure that you see a doctor and get medicated for and possibly hospitalized for bipolar disorder. And we had one of the individuals come into the office and they were sitting in a chair and they were very calmly and respectfully told, you need to stop this. You cannot continue. You are harassing our client. You cannot continue to make false allegations that this individual is mentally ill when they are not. This is not mental illness. This is long-term after effects of certain types of abuse. Verbal, emotional, psychological, financial, spiritual, sexual abuse, and significant neglect done by multiple people. including the person who was sitting in the office that day. So they agreed with that practitioner that they would stop, but they didn't stop. And when I switched from that practitioner, my time with them, had come to an end, and it was time for me to move on to a different type of practitioner. And as soon as they found out that I had switched to a different practitioner's office, they started up immediately with the same behavior, leaving the phone messages. Then it began, they actually convinced their own psychiatrist that I was at risk and I really, really needed help. I needed them to make phone calls. This person wanted them to that doctor to make phone calls on his behalf about me to my practitioners, to ask them to diagnose, medicate, treat, and possibly hospitalize me for bipolar disorder. So the whole thing was just continuing, and I began to recognize it doesn't matter where I would go for healthcare. It does not matter. If I was in a medical facility, this would start up. I mean, if I went into a hospital to have surgery, this person, if they could get there or if they could find out where this is going to happen, they might begin to do something like that again. And I didn't really feel too safe in that situation, because when we have surgery, well, before surgery, we're quite, usually quite alert. But after surgery, when we're having pain medication or if we're coming out of anesthesia, we need somebody to be our advocate. We don't need somebody working against us in a situation like that. So when I started seeing the orthopedic surgeon and their staff, I explained to them, I'm a domestic violence survivor, and it's uncomfortable for me to go into a hospital, and I don't want any further complications with a person who has the traits of factitious disorder imposed on another. And I do not want to give that person an opportunity to come in and start messing with my own personal health care. And they said, oh, thank you for letting us know. We'd be so happy to help you with that. We'll put it in your chart. When you go for your pre-op, you make sure that you let the staff there know. When you get to the hospital, you make sure that you let security know. When you are, planning to be at the hospital, decide whether or not ahead of time that you want to have any visitors. It might be more safe for you if you have no visitors, but that's up to you. You can make a restricted visitors list. That's fine. But because I knew that I was going to have to stay over one night, because if there was nobody at home to supervise me after general anesthesia, hospital liability attorneys don't let you go home. I mean, they have a policy where hospital's not allowed to discharge you to home unless somebody's going to be there with you. And when I told them there is nobody who is available to be with me that day. I've checked, there isn't. And they said, then you have to stay over. And I said, okay, great. Because that means I'll feel a little bit safer. I will feel like if I need pain management, they can give it. And, I've had this kind of surgery done on the opposite shoulder before in 2016, and it was painful. That was a full thickness tear of the rotator cuff. And this time the left shoulder had full thickness tear of the rotator cuff plus the bicep, bicep was torn off the bone, and the bicep itself was torn. And so that surgery is called tenodesis when they repair it. And so I ended up having several tendinectomies and a bursectomy, and they took out lots of little pieces of cartilage and debris that was in the joint that was causing problems. And they cleaned it up real nice and stitched me up good, made me new tendons. And because of the gruesomeness of that surgery, the things that they have to do. There's a lot of swelling afterwards. There's a lot of inflammation, a lot of pain. And so I was glad to be there overnight so I could just sleep in the bed there and just rest, and I'd have help getting to the restroom and things like that. So here's what we did. When I got there, told security, this is this person's name, their information, their license plate number, their date of birth, explained that this person has engaged in domestic violence for a very, very long, significant amount of time, and that I wanted to have no visitors whatsoever. And I had to be there like by 8 o'clock in the morning. So I got there at 7 o'clock. I like to be early for things like that, just in case something happens. So I took an Uber to the hospital, stopped at security, took care of that stuff, and went to surgery around 10:30 in the morning. Got out of surgery at 3:30 in the afternoon. It took them about 5 hours to repair my shoulder. Excuse me. And then I was given a ride home the next day in a wheelchair van because, excuse me, there's I live fairly close to Canada, and the wildfires that are happening in Canada are really affecting our air quality here. And I'm so sorry for, that situation that's happening to, displacing people and things like that. But I'm going to cut my video a little bit short because I'm feeling like my voice isn't working right now. So anyways, if you're a domestic violence survivor and you have to have surgery, it is doable to go alone if you have to, if there is nobody else to support you. It's still doable to have your surgery because you can go alone. And the moment that the hospital finds out, when the nursing staff and security staff and other staff find out that you are a domestic violence survivor, they'll do everything in their power to protect you. I never asked for it. I didn't find out till I was being discharged. They put a sign on my door that said, oh, by the way, when I came back from surgery, they put me in a semi-private room and came in about an hour later when the nurse, who was my nurse, she came in about an hour later and she said, we're going to be putting you in a private room right next to the desk. I'm not comfortable with you being down by the elevator. I want you next to the desk. We're going to keep a closer eye on you just to make sure that you don't have anybody popping in to visit you that shouldn't be there. And I said, okay, that's fine. So they moved me to the private room. But the next day when I was getting discharged was when she told me, we put a pretty big sign on your door, big enough nobody could miss it. It said, this patient cannot have visitors. If you're here for this patient, please come to the front desk immediately. And she said, nobody came to the desk. But very late last night, she said it was between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning. We heard a man's voice and he was hollering and it sounded like it was right over here. She said, I was in a patient's room and I came running out here to see what was going on. And she said it was just one of our workers shouting to somebody down the hall, but he forgot it was nighttime and he decided to use his, outdoors voice indoors. But anyways, she said, you were fine. She said, but just to make sure, she said, I opened your door just to make sure you were all right. She said, you were just snoozing away in here. But she said, we were watching out for you. And I said, that just means the world to me, that you would protect me from anyone who might come in here to do any harm. Now, this is important for me to clarify. I asked that individual, when they found out that I was going to have surgery, they actually called me And they said, I'd really like to come and visit you when you're in the hospital. And I said, no, thank you. I can handle this all on my own. No, thank you. Please do not come near me. And that to me was, I read that kind of as a heads up. I felt like it wasn't really about asking if they could come and see me. I think it was them letting me know, you still have to worry about what I could do. And I said, well, why would you need to come and see me? And I was shocked at their answer, but I could not act shocked. I didn't want to sound shocked. I wanted to act like I was just cool as a cucumber, and I'm like, oh, okay, like that. And what they said, I said, why on earth would you want to come and see me? We're not together anymore. Why would you want to do that? And the answer was, and this is the most important thing I'm telling you in this situation, they use certain language that lets you know that they are still focused on that thing that multiple practitioners have told them, don't do this. Don't do this. You don't have the authority to do this. You don't have the jurisdiction to do this. You cannot go to medical practitioners or mental health practitioners and make false statements against this person for the purpose of getting them diagnosed, treated, medicated, or hospitalized for something that only exists in your head. It is not real for this person. And so when I said, why would you want to go there anyways? I'm only going to be there for a day. I'll be fine. I don't need, if I need help, I'll ask the people that I want to help me. You don't have to worry yourself about this. And the answer was this. Well, I think it would be best if I did come in there with you, because I would need to let the staff know that I have very big concerns about you. And that's the magic word, concern. I have concern. Like their concern is something everybody else better sit up straight and pay attention to. Oh, wait, you have concern about her? Mm-hmm. And you need to hear all about it, because I am very worried about her. And there are things that if I can't get near her primary doctor, and I can't get near her mental health practitioner, I can't get near, and all mental health practitioners are highly recommended to have their own mental health practitioner so that we don't bring our stuff into sessions. And it's just part of well-being. It's just part of taking care of our health concerns. Being as healthy as we can possibly be, right? So that right there is the buzzword. In fact, it's a phrase. I'm so concerned about her. I'm so concerned about them. I'm so concerned about him. I'm so concerned. When asked, what are you so concerned about? This is a really big tell. When they don't have one specific thing that they're concerned about, when they say, well, it's just all of it. Well, they're just so angry. And the funny thing is, what's the anger from? The anger exists because it's part of our central nervous system and our peripheral nervous system throughout the body that gives us the signals. Sometimes it comes in the form of anger. And our anger is created within to make us become awake and aware this person does harm. They have done harm in the past. And as a trauma survivor, part of our brain has a motto. And that motto is never again. I am not going through this again under any circumstances with this person or any other person, because my system, I can trust it I can trust myself. My body was made to give me signals to tell me when something isn't right. And what they're saying, what they're doing, what they're perpetrating on me, what they're perpetrating on somebody else related to me or in relationship with me or whatever, it's not okay. And my system is made to recognize it. So when the system is recognizing that, our job is to honor that and to say, I wouldn't feel that way unless this was a red flag. I would not feel this way unless I was supposed to feel this way for my own safety and my own protection, my own self-partnering, and for me to be able to read the situation and make an important decision. Do I engage with them anymore, or do I put some distance between me and them and then do what my system needs, not what that person is trying to do through manipulation, invalidation, minimization, exploitation, just every single kind of interference or overpowering or trying to steer me a certain way or trying to convince me of something that isn't true. So I'll sum it up really quickly. They wanted to get into the hospital so they could start doing the same pattern of behavior they've always done, and they couldn't get anybody to do anything at the mental health practice or the next mental health practice or the next one, and they couldn't get any satisfaction for what they wanted because they wanted, again, I know I'm repetitive on this, but it's really important. They want diagnosis, treatment, medication, and hospitalization usually. Okay, those are the four things that are the big prize for them. Because if I can get you diagnosed with something, I hold incredible sway and power over you and a whole team of medical and mental health practitioners. I feel so empowered if I can be the puppet master pulling the strings on all these people. Well, that's what factitious disorder imposed on another is. But it doesn't have to be a person with factitious disorder imposed on another. It can just be a controlling ex. It can be a highly, highly controlling parent, a sibling, a friend, a grandparent. It can be your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your significant other, or even one that used to be. It doesn't matter so much how you know them or how they're related to you. What matters is that you recognize if someone is interfering and has an agenda and they want for you to have them in control of your health care. So the big solution to that, and I know this is hard. It was hard for me to get used to this. I've done it several times now. If you can't trust anybody in your, in your community, in your sphere, in your household, you might have to do what I did. I promise you, they will help you and you will survive it if you do have to do it this way. I wouldn't, at this point in my life, I wouldn't go to have any procedure anywhere with other people knowing where I'm going and when and with whom. So I got used to checking myself into a hospital, sharing this information, asking for the help, and you will get it. I promise you. And it is so peaceful. It is utterly non-chaotic. And for the first time in many, many years, I can get my health care with absolutely no chaos. And then even the wheelchair van guy that came to pick me up at the hospital the day after my surgery, I was there about a day and a half. I got in the van with that man and he drove me, about, I don't know, like 20, 26 miles or so to my home. And what he told me on the way there made me 100% absolutely certain that I did this exactly the right way I needed to. He just said certain things. He just shared certain things about his life. And it was just one of those, I always do it like this. I'll take my fingers and just go like this for a second. It's like one of those connections in the world where you get confirmation that you're doing it right, that you made the right decision and everything turned out exactly as it should be. I had one little glitchy thing happen at the end. When I woke up in my from surgery, they didn't have a sling on me, and you're supposed to have the sling on before you leave the recovery room, but I didn't have one. It was in a plastic bag at the foot of my bed, and they took me up to my room. And the first thing the nurse and the aide asked is, "Why didn't they put your sling on you?" And I said, "I don't know. I have no idea why they didn't." I was still, woozy from surgery. And they said, "Okay, well, we don't even know how to work these things. Everybody comes up with them on. We don't know why you don't have one on." And they're like, "Okay, I don't know what to tell you." So they finally figured it out, and I ended up, because I had a nerve block and I couldn't really feel them putting it on me anyways. It was like maybe 10 hours later when I'm like, "Oh no, the nerve block wore off. This is bad." But when I got discharged, wheelchair guy, was there, and they said, "Well, we never used the pillow part. There's like a pillow attachment that keeps your arms separated from your body." They said, "We never even put this on you." So the aide goes, "I'm just going to throw it out. I don't think you need it." Well, I went for my 2-week post-surgical appointment. I follow up at the surgeons, and they said, "Where's your pillow?" And I said, "Oh, the aide threw it out at the hospital." And the woman really actually slapped her own forehead and said, "What on earth? Why would anybody do that? That is supposed to be on you." And I said, "Is this going to change the outcome of my surgery?" And she said, "Probably not. I don't think so." And I said, "Do I have to go get another one?" And she said, "Nah, don't even bother, because you should have had it on for 2 weeks. Today would be the day we'd have you stop using it. But you just never used it in the first place." But little glitchy things like that can happen. But there's a whole lot that we can prevent ourselves. And most of the difficulties that come from having surgery don't come from having the surgery. They come from the relationships that we have with people that make us nervous, make us stressed, make us hurt, make us angry, make us cry, make us be distraught. And we can avoid a whole lot of that so that we can be self-partnered and we can have the smoothest, best, most wonderful recovery. And what I want for myself, I want for you too. So I hope this topic has been useful for you. And I hope that you'll share it with anyone that you know who is a domestic violence survivor, or somebody who may not even realize that they're kind of a domestic violence survivor. That happens a lot. I was one of those people for well over, over 30 years. I did not know that I was a domestic violence survivor. I just thought, oh, I just can't figure out why I don't feel good and why life is never going great for me. Um, Many of us don't know, and that's not our fault. It's because of the brainwashing that the domestic violence perpetrator does on the person who is the abused. So again, let's go back just one more time. There's a book that's going to be published. Me and a friend of mine are publishing a book, and it's called Turdball Apologies. And the book is a collection of all different people's stories of the worst apology they have ever received from another human being. And we're going to take it apart on the table, dissect it, and tell why exactly where it jumped off the track, what it should have sounded like, what a human decency response would have been, and compare the two and help people to understand the language of narcissistic abuse, because narcissistic people are the people who can't apologize, or they apologize so abominably, so badly, that it becomes a new injury a lot of times for the person that they're abusing. So if you want to participate and you want to send your story to me, please send it to worstapologyever@gmail.com and let me know whether or not you want to be credited or if you want to be anonymous. And I'll get back in touch with you. And if it's going to be in the book, I will let you know. Okay. I hope you all have the very best day. One last thing I forgot to show you. Every video that I make, right there, see that lit candle? Every single time I make a video, you might not see it. Most of my videos, you can see it right over my shoulder. But when I make a video outside, I can assure you the candle is still right there. And what the candle symbolizes is every single person who was harmed or abused in some way, severely traumatized, a trauma survivor that went home a little too early. They didn't survive it. And I just like to hold space for them while I do these talks to include them within my heart, to honor them so we know that they are not forgotten. And those of us who are still here are fighting the good fight. So thank you so much for being here. Again, please like, subscribe, and share. Put comments in the comments section. If you have any questions or any ideas for videos that you would like me to make, please put them in the comments section. It delights me to find them there. I hope you all have the very best day. And please remember, self-care is never, ever selfish, and that you are infinitely worthy of your own trauma recovery. My contact information is in the description for this video, for all of my videos. But if you have a desire to work with a certified trauma recovery coach, you can contact me 716-994-3052. And you can go to my website, which is linbouthillier.com, and you can email me at lin@linbouthillier.com. It's LIN@LINBOUTHILLIER. It looks like Lin Bouthillier, but it's a name from it's a French Canadian name. So it's Lin Bouthillier. So I hope to see you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.